What's up, everybody? This is John from Coding Addict, and welcome to another Power Hour live stream. See,
Set.
thanks to Paul, we came up with the name finally. It took us a long time. As always, I'm joined by one and only Mr. Paul Bratkowski, the mastermind behind Coding After 30 channel. How are you, Paul?
Very good. How are you today, John? And hi, everybody.
Good. I'm doing really well. Weather is turning really great here, so yeah, enjoying that a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, if you want to check out some cool content, be sure to visit Paul's channel, Coding After 30. And while you're there, be sure to smash that like button. As far as the announcements, as always, thank you to everyone who's showing up. The starting time, scratch whatever I said last week, we'll start at 8 o'clock. So the plan was to work with the Toddler, and then Toddler decided not to work with us. So basically, it's going to be 8 o'clock from now on, and then we'll just figure it out in our household. And it's going to be still 1 hour because it's going to be better audio. So the people who are watching later, you'll definitely notice a better audio. And that's what we're like shooting for. It's kind of very important for us. And yes, like I said previously, the main theme is going to be a separate video on Paul's channel. And then whenever he posts, I'm just going to leave the link over here. And let's start with weekly tips and fails. So for me, it was, have you ever worked with concurrently in a React project or, well, Node project, I guess?
No, not yet. Not yet.
So it's when you're building MERN, you want to run basically two applications. You want to run the React one, and you want to run the Node, which is basically serving your APIs. And you can run them on separate terminals. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's easier if you can run it with one command. So basically, you configure it that, you have one command, you have one script, it spins up the React one, and then the other one spins up the Node. But there is a difference how you configure your folders. So I'm not going to go into nitty gritty, but there might be some situations where essentially you run them both, and then let's say you just update the front end part, and the server starts up as well, and you're in this weird kind of space where the front end tries to make a request, the API request, and it just fails. But in the meantime, basically the server is spinning up, and it's why it's a weird bug, because it's like initial time when let's say you run the command, the first time it spins it up, everything is fine, and even the application is working. But then when you start making changes to whatever you start adding code and whatnot, then the problem happens. So it's like this weird one where, okay, initially it worked, and then I just made some changes that shouldn't cause any errors.
Right.
And yeah, again, this one was me when I finished the project, already got everything going, and then it's just like this weird thing happening. And yeah, basically the solution is I'll make a Twitter post about it as well, where you can just add a hyphen. Now let me check in my notes. You can add hyphen or dash ignore, and then whatever is the name of the client folder. So basically what's going to happen then, if there's only changes in a client, then the server doesn't restart and everything, and basically you're back to normalcy, because that one was like very interesting to chase around for like half an hour and all that. How about you?
Yeah. Are you using a third-party package to do that, Node? Like, what are you using for that? Or because I've never done that. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, concurrently. Yeah,
concurrently. Okay.
Yeah, concurrently. That's kind of again, you technically don't have to. You can spin up two separate terminals, but it is a little bit easier if you just one command. Usually you set it up as npm start, so I don't have to remember like npm run develop or none of that stuff, and then you just run it. Yeah, concurrently.
No, that's awesome. I haven't used it. I just normally just run front end separately and back end separately, but it definitely makes sense. And it says task automation with npm. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I seen somebody use similar something to it, but I had no idea that that's what it was called. And I think I'm gonna try it, because I'm sick and tired of constantly starting like npm run like develop for Strappy, and then npm run start for my React project. So that's kind of good tip. Good tip.
A very good package. You just need to be aware of those some weird kind of glitches, I would say, because funny enough, like long story, actually, while I was developing the project, my project structure was a little bit different, and everything worked without that hyphen ignore. But then once I moved the client folder inside of the server, that's when it, started doing those things. So that's when I had to kind of reconfigure my whole setup pretty much. I
Yeah, no,
mean,
that
with that little thing.
with that line. No, but that's very helpful. I actually am going to try it. I just like looked up the npm package. I think it is useful. And on my end, like I don't really have a coding tip or fail, but this kind of idea when you try to get like too excited and then you try to do too much stuff, you can't do everything. And so with that, like I still know like I have a bunch of YouTube videos that I have to do, like that you and I have done that I have to post. And so the point that I guess I got excited, I had a job interview for a Angular position, and I was like, you know what, let me go after it. So I spent a bunch of time like trying to go over Angular, trying to do TypeScript and look into how to do like unit testing with Angular because all that stuff is required for the job. And at the end, I realized that, there's so many jobs available with React that there's no reason for me to stretch myself and try to go and stress myself out trying to do something new just because somebody said, hey, we have this job for you. Because my last live stream, I looked at bunch of job postings and there's plenty of React postings. And so here I am. I spent like a big part of my like couple of days trying to learn something new, like with this idea, like, oh my God, this is the only way I could do it, to show you that even I like, the shiny thing syndrome, and I don't even want to learn Angular. Like I looked at it, I'm like, not my thing, and so I kind of had to remind myself, like, look, you're studying React, you're studying like JavaScript, this is what you're doing, stick within your lane, and there's still plenty of jobs. And it's funny because I talk about it, don't try to do everything. And here I was, almost fell into that trap. And I kind of had to, bring myself back into it. So that was like my kind of lesson in learning this week.
Yeah, but I can definitely resonate with you, man, because
yeah.
I think it was on a first live stream that we did, that after one of the videos on Free Code Camp, basically, cryptocurrency company approached me to be a developer advocate. But the thing is, I don't know anything about cryptocurrency. And yeah, when they let out, oh yeah, so this is what you would be doing, I was like, oh, well, should I do it? But then I'm like, okay, so that means that pretty much everything in my schedule I need to clear, need to spend next 3 months. Do I really want to do that? Or, I mean, of course I would do that if I would get a job, but still, do I want to just drop everything that I've been doing and then start from scratch? Yeah, crypto space is an interesting kind of, I'm looking at it. It's interesting for me, but do I really, at this point, I probably would rather build some full stack apps first and then kind of focus on that one. Yeah. And so I do want to make, before we start with the main theme, I want to do 2 shout outs. First to Paul's cat. He has the best cat ever. And I also want to make a pledge to people that if you need an animal, like look for shelters first. There's plenty of animals who need home. That's number one. And if you're there, if you're looking for a cat, shoot for the black one, because for some weird, whatever things, the black ones get picked up last. So go for those ones. And if you want to find out why, go to Paul's Twitter and you'll see he's the best cat ever, who's actually the biggest fan of our live stream, as a side note.
Yeah, no, he loves you more than he loves me. Like, unless I'm feeding him, he doesn't care. But like, he's always watching like the live streams, both of them actually. But you probably hear him in the background.
I still don't get so much appreciation in my home. I'm like, walk in the room, it's like, well, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and 100%. Like people should adopt animals because otherwise they're not going to go anywhere good. That's just like, definitely, if you could save a kitty or a dog or whatever, it's definitely 100%. All my animals been adopted, all of them. I think that's a very good thing to do.
And also I want to make shout out to Paul's hat, because I watched his live stream a few days ago and I was like, I wish he would come up, but I was like, should I ask him or not? And then I thought that he might think that I'm like pushy or whatever. So I was like, hey, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. But he did decide to come with the hat. So
yeah, the secret is that I was having so many issues with my computer before the stream. I'm like, I got to figure this out. So I didn't have time to do anything with my hair. So I'm like, let me put the hat on. So that's the secret. If I don't have the hat, it's like this.
Look, people have been commenting that you always bring it, that every time there's a new haircut. I don't know how sustainable that is for every week, But that definitely could be our thing where you bring something with a haircut.
I
mean,
was thinking
again,
about that. Like, what could I do? Like pigtails next time, you know?
I know it would be tough, but
So
if anybody can do it, you can do it.
It's funny because in my family, like they all my family, they ask me if there's like a big event, like a family birthday or some wedding, like do not touch your hair, leave it be, because every time I would try to cut my own hair and I would end up shaving my head because I mess up. And so every family important birthday, like my mom's like 50th birthday, like whatever, this wedding, I'm bald, like no hair, because I would just shave it completely. And my family's like, what are you doing? So one time I wanted to freak my family out. So I took my hair, it was like this long, and I literally cut it down, shaved it down the middle. And I went downstairs, and you should have seen my mother. I think she was going to kick me out for like out of the house. And then I ended up shaving the rest because my daughter would kill me also. But yeah, so I get it, you know, with the hair thing, because I don't even know what I want, you know.
But with this kind of hair, shouldn't you have like your own like private the hairdresser who is basically on a call all the time?
Yeah, I should definitely do that. But if like you, it's funny you say that because I have so many pictures of me where my hair is totally different. Like I used to have like highlights, or it would be a certain style, like whatever, every time, and I just don't know. Like I guess like I like experimenting with myself.
Yeah,
my family though, they're like, "What's wrong with you?"
I don't have that luxury. I'm just happy that I have something there.
True.
So still there.
So another funny story. So I stopped messing with my hair because one day my mom, like, she's walking around and she's like, "Oh, what's that over here?" And sure enough, like there's like signs of like my hair like thinning out. I'm like, "Oh my god, I better stop messing with it. Leave it as it is," you know. But it is what it is, you know.
Well, it's part of the aging process.
Yeah, exactly. It's normal. So.
And yeah, sorry. Did you want to say anything?
No. That enough talking about hair. You know, otherwise we'll be here forever.
Well, definitely make the show out of that. We probably should call it differently.
Yeah.
And as far as our main theme this week, we've got learn enough to be dangerous. And let me just start with the main points. Then I'm gonna go on a little bit longer ramble. Then I'll ask Paul, and then I'll talk about something that I find it very, very useful. So the main points are: don't try to memorize everything. Focus on the main idea and principles first, and apply Pareto Principle, which I'm going to talk about after the Paul's answer. And sorry if I'm mispronouncing the Pareto. And again, I'll talk about it a little bit later. And basically, the initial approach when you start learning might be something like this. You just sit down and you go like, okay, so I have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or React, or Gatsby, whatever. And I'm just going to take my time and learn everything that is necessary. But the thing is, it's very hard to learn everything about that specific technology, simply because there's too much info. There's literally people who spend years and years in not only the front end, back end DevOps or performance. It can be a very niche thing. Let's say animations of the front end. And they can still openly say, hey, look, I don't know anything. Meaning, I don't know everything. Sorry, not anything. I don't know everything. And there's always something new that I need to learn. And the reason for that, again, like we talked about already many times, industry is constantly changing. There's always pretty much something new. And because of that, because there's so much info, it is very hard to memorize everything. It's pretty much impossible. And also with such approach, if you just start memorizing stuff, you know, day by day, week by week, and whatever, A, you'll get bored pretty fast. And second, it's actually counterproductive because you won't retain as much as you think, because you won't spend enough time on a practice. So let's say, for example, for me, like I've kind of figured out that my attention span is around 1 hour. So once I've been listening for something for 1 hour, I need to start implementing it. Otherwise, all of that is nothing. By tomorrow, pretty much is going to be gone. So I literally have stopped watching any kind of educational, let's say, tutorial or even, you know, spending my time on reading something unless I can practice it there and then, you know, because otherwise then I just waste my time. So I decided, you know, it's better to just schedule my time where I can implement that right away. And then it just makes way more sense. And my suggestion is to learn in small increments. apply the knowledge and don't try to learn everything. Basically, get comfortable with the fact that you won't know everything, right? You will always be in this space where, yeah, there's some things that I don't know about HTML. There's some things that I don't know about CSS that just, one day pop up and you're like, oh, wow, I never knew that, was doing this. And don't be upset if you forget something. It's completely normal. I sometimes go back to my own courses. I go back to my own projects quite often and just get the information. And as you'll be progressing, the stuff you will use, you will remember. Trust me.
Yep.
And the stuff that you won't, you can always look up. And it's actually always easier to build on the knowledge that you already have. So let's say there has been some things where initially I didn't understand that. And then sometime later, when I have been already building different projects, let's put it this way. And then I come back and I go like, okay, now I understand actually that thing because I've been spending my time on building something instead of just focusing on something that I don't understand. And one last thing that I want to say before I let Paul talk, like, trust me, once you build few nav bars, cards, and hero sections, you will see what things you need the most and what you can always look up. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, 100%. One of the things that I noticed, like sometimes I'll build and I could use, let's say, a model with JavaScript. And let's say a few weeks later, I forgot how I did it. Like the cool thing after you do it once, you know where to look it up. You know where to find the resources. So it's much easier. And I definitely, agree with that. And I don't know if you were going to define the Pareto principle for people. I was going to say it's something I had at my local pizza restaurant with my Alfredo sauce. No, it sounds like a food, Pareto, but it's, I guess, the guy's name is Pareto, and he created a principle which is actually super important. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I do. I've come to realization that I'm pretty much trying to stick to it to whatever I'm doing. So not again, this is not one of those things where you can sit down and just and I don't know write it. I mean, maybe you could, but I just find myself essentially that is sticking to the fundamentals. But as far as the Pareto principle that I mentioned in the beginning, it basically states that for many outcomes, roughly 80% of the consequences come from 20% of the causes, basically vital few. Other names for this principle are 80-20 rule, the law of the vital few, and the principle of factor sparsity. Yeah, I got this one from Wikipedia, so yeah, don't judge me. And as far as my experience, the ratios can be even higher. It can be 90-10 and 95-5. And again, like I said, I pretty much apply that to a lot of things. And let me give you an example so it's a little bit clear what I'm talking about. So if I take a look at my channel, the YouTube channel, like 80% of the views come from 20% of my videos. So essentially, if I were to ask you an advice to anybody, I would say, hey, should I spend my energy on 80% of the content and just hope for the best? Or should I find out those 20% and try to replicate that, try to utilize that, and then make my videos, the future videos, based on that? Like apply those principles, whatever I used in those 20%. And I'm pretty sure that your answer is going to be well focused on those 20. And I bet the same is with Paul's channel. And again, give you another example. Like if you're talking about like working out, right? There's literally 6 exercises that you can do, the compound exercises, that if you are being consistent, now you're not going to win the bodybuilding competitions or whatever, but you will be in shape. So my point is, don't overcomplicate things. And as far as the web dev, while you're learning front end, especially in the beginning, I mean, most likely 80% of the project you'll use, only 20% of the HTML tags. So you don't need to memorize all the attributes in the form input. You can always look it up. Now with CSS, it's a little bit tricky, only because it depends if you use the default styles or not. So if you already have set up typography, colors, and some of the often used classes, a lot of times it will come down, at least in my experience, to layout and box model. So we're talking about the CSS grid and flexbox as well as the margin and padding. Now, what's also interesting that when we're talking about flexbox and grid, again, 80% of your project will use only 20% of the properties, basically, that are available in the Flexbox and Grid. You're talking about display flex, justify content, and align items. So again, that's going to be your bread and butter. And we can do the same thing with CSS Grid. So hopefully you see where I'm going. Where again, for majority of your projects, you're actually are going to use 20% of the content or information that is out there about that specific technology. And when it comes to JavaScript, we already talked about it multiple times. Fetch data, iterate, and manipulate the list and display it on the screen. Yes, of course, you'll have to understand the main principles like variables and functions first. But essentially, once you do that, then day by day, over and over, you'll repeat the same steps. So after that fifth time, when you're writing a fetch request, I bet you'll be able to do that in your sleep. Another interesting one is React hooks. Use state and use effect will get you very, very far. So
90% of the way.
Only two. Oh, there's my best friend. So only two hooks will allow you to build pretty complex layouts. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't learn those things later. What I'm saying is that in the beginning, you should focus your energy on that. As your project will get more complex, of course, you'll need to understand the other hooks and other parts of the language. But the point is, those two hooks, or whatever HTML basics or CSS basics, will be your foundation. And it's very important that you spend your most time on that in the beginning. And once you're comfortable with that, once you have built the project with those fundamentals, with those 20%, right, you have been working on a project, it's going to be easier to add those other things. Trust me, like once you know already use state and use effect, it's going to be much easier to add use reducer to your tool belt or use ref, right? Instead of just trying to jam everything in the beginning. And then by the end, once you have covered use memo, you already forgot what the use state is doing. And trust me, like use state is going to save you way more than use memo. And just to sum it up, my suggestion is to learn in small increments. Always practice stuff you learned. Keep moving forward. So, example, while learning JavaScript, you will build projects, right? And guess what? In order to build them, what are you going to use? HTML and CSS. And the same goes for React. In order to make complex React projects, you'll use a bunch of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So my point is that with every technology, you will still utilize the previous ones in the process. And you'll get better at them and more comfortable. And in the process, you'll grow as a developer. And just don't be frustrated if you need to go back and look stuff up. It's perfectly normal, and you're not expected to remember anything. Anything to add, Paul?
Just the part where you said there's, using the 80-20 principle for exercising, you said there are 6 compound movements. I just do one. I figured I'll just do that 1%. I just do deadlifts. You do deadlifts, everything works out. But here's an example of like coming to the 80-20 rule. Actually, I used for this recent interview. So they asked me like a lot of stuff about Angular. They asked me stuff about, doing unit testing and test-driven development. And like, I don't do any of those things right now, to be honest with you. So I literally Googled like the top questions or things like you should know when, talking about those technologies. So I literally applied the 80-20 rule to learning about test-driven development before my interview. And I just remember memorizing like the basic principles, red, green, refactor. That's like if you say that in an interview, like even if you don't know what that means, people are going to be like, oh my God, he knows what he's talking about it. So I was able to, within like, an hour or so, get like a really big overview without diving deep that allowed me to at least talk about the stuff in my interview, which I thought was kind of funny. But in terms of studying, and I do have a question for you because I get this question all the time, and I have my own answer, but I want to make sure that people hear from other places because everybody has their own path. But what I was going to say, the 80-20 rule, I try to, just like you said, apply it in my life as well. And a lot of times, like I try to ask myself, what is the 20% in JavaScript that will give you the 80% of results? What is it in React? What is it in HTML, CSS? Because honestly, like you keep saying, and I said, and everybody says that you can't learn everything because the field is so wide, but you can learn the most important things that you do on your day-to-day that will allow you to get hired and get a job. And the question with that being said is when someone's starting out, like, and I know we talked about this before, but I still get this question a lot, is should people go full stack right away, or do you still recommend that they learn front end and try to get a job with front end first?
No, I don't suggest going full stack right away. This is something that has become like, again, we can make this probably another main theme or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it has become like this fashion statement. And in my opinion, it really shouldn't. It's really about just getting better as a front end developer. And then once you're comfortable with building already front end stuff, it's going to be much easier for you to actually pick up the back end. In my experience, find it way better if you first learn how to build APIs. Just simple API, right? So something that you can put up there on the internet and anybody can access, and they can just use it and with vanilla and whatever. And then you try to just, because then it's really just about putting it together. And I think I find it a lot of times where people say, yeah, I want to be a full stack, where I'm not saying that you shouldn't. Again, this is that interesting part. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn those things. But, even with full stack, what do you think is the most that I spent my time on just building, let's say, the first MERN project? Guess.
the front end.
No, but more specifically.
HTML and CSS.
Exactly.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I mean, and again, it doesn't mean that you don't need the logic, but the thing is, if you already have built the server and whatever, right? When it comes to those parts, it's way more tedious than you think, unless you may be using, some kind of pre-built or whatever. I wouldn't say even template, because even with a template, you would need to do that. But you will be going back to that one. So I kind of, it's the same little bit to me as there's this tricky like little line where, yes, I always say to people, look, you shouldn't be spending like 3 years and whatever on just HTML and CSS and then JavaScript and then go to React. That's not what I'm saying. But it's also the case where a lot of times jumping straight to React is not probably the best thing that you can do, because you're not going to be focusing on those things that actually will help you out throughout the React kind of path. So
no, 100%. And like I was kind of thinking about, like, how like on YouTube the most popular videos are like roadmap 2021 or roadmap 2022, and they literally list every freaking popular technology that will take you 1,000 years just to understand. And a lot of people, watch a video like that and they're still not sure, like, what should they learn. And so first of all, like, when I say this, like, please note, I made a lot of mistakes. I wasted a lot of time. Like, and I have these like bad examples, but it's like, if I liked a girl, how would I know if she liked me? I know like this, like some people don't like my dating advice. Please don't take any dating advice from me. I would ask her, do you like me? Like, find out from the source what is in demand. And so what I do and why I decided to stick with JavaScript and React is because I did job searches in my local area for those technologies, and I saw what are the things that were sticking out the most: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. And that's how I decided what to learn, not like by some dude just telling me you should learn this, like you and I are telling people, but whatever, besides the point. But the point is that you need to do your research and figure out what's the demand and what are you trying to break into. You need to know the goal that you're trying to hit before studying. But when I see questions, and I used to do it all the time, like, should I learn JavaScript? Should I learn PHP? Should I learn this? Should I learn that? That means you did not take the effort yourself, and please don't hate me, guys, but you didn't do the research to see what's in demand in your area and what you should be studying. And I only say that because I made that same mistake, and like I would spin my wheels and I couldn't figure out what to do. So, anyway, my little rant.
No, everything was correct. I just want to add two things. First of all, like we talked about it already before. The reason why I say that about the full stack is because I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but chances of you being hired right out of the gate as a full stack developer, especially without any like experience, are slimmer for sure.
Yeah.
Right. That's number one. That's why I always being cautious to people like when they say, "Oh, I just want to be a full stack developer." Second, again, we have talked about this many times where it's a natural progression as your front end projects get more complex because you will be sick of, let's say, building the same thing. You'll be like, okay, how can I do this? How can I make my app more complex? Like Paul always talks about, like your every project should be a little bit more complex than a previous one, right?
Yeah.
Now, I sometimes sin at that. Like I've had some cases where I literally built like few similar ones, and then I'm like, look, I just want to build something that I haven't done. Like with this MERN project, there was a specific layout that I never did, and I was always putting it off. It's like, next one. And this one, I was like, no, you'll sit for 2-3 days and you will figure it out. And because, I really wanted to understand how it works. And then I did it. So where I'm going with this is the next progression is usually combining that. Because like we have always talked about it, there's limited resources for those APIs. Now, again, I'm not saying that you're not going to have them. And I'm really talking about your own projects. Of course, in a company, it's different. They build the API for you.
Yeah.
So again, please distinguish what I'm trying to say here. Like I'm talking about your own projects. When you're building them, you will come to the point where you will need some kind of backend, whether that is Strappy, whether that is, whatnot. And then third interesting point, like Paul has been saying before, where you can build the project with Strappy. But what happens at some point, if you'll be customizing, you'll be like, well, I might as well build it my own. So that's that next progression where you start with Strappy and then you implement such and such and such and such functionality. And then at some point, you'll be like, well, I might as well learn how the node and express works. And then you jump to that next step. So I know it might sound like a downer, for people like, hey, like why you're not saying, yeah, you should right away jump into that. And for me, it's spending time on those things and understanding what works and what doesn't. And then you'll naturally get to that point where you're like, look, I need to build my own server in order to make the front-end application that I always wanted. So that's kind of...
So to follow up on that, because we're on this topic, in one of the comments, somebody said, what to learn first, Node or React? And Alex said, learn React. And I agree 100% learn React first, because if I had to learn Node first, I'd still not have a job. I fully believe that would take me way longer to get a job as a backend developer or even full stack developer. So my way I did it, and I'm not saying it's the only way, but I always say become the best you could be in the front end with React, understand how to work with APIs, and start looking for jobs so you get hired. And once you get hired, you're going to be able to transition to learning Node, learning whatever the heck you want, but now you're getting paid. Now you're making money as a developer, you're building experience. And so if you want to be a full stack developer from the start, we're not saying don't do it, but understand that the journey to get to getting your first job is going to be very difficult. And from my experience doing backend, so let's say we get the basics out of the way, you have your controllers and routes and they point to whatever the thing that you want to do. That's part of the application. But a lot of times as a full stack developer, that's not the only thing you're doing. They might have some weird, like complex logic that you have to figure out that does something behind the scenes, that it serves the data to the front end. And believe it or not, a lot of that stuff is the stuff that might get more, computer sciencey or more focused on what's the best algorithm in this case, because performance becomes pretty important. And so if you're going to, let's say you don't have a college degree, let's say you're self-taught and you're looking to get into web development, by doing backend first, you're going to get all the hard questions on the interview. They're going to be asking a lot more complex stuff than you would with the front end. Because what are you doing in the front end? You're just showing stuff, and then based on events, you're doing something, which is way easier, in my opinion, than going full stack right away. And so I also the same. You don't go full stack.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree with that because in my experience, the people I talk to, also the same thing. They get into the field, they start as front end devs, and then they slowly kind of move into more, let's say, back end roles. I would say
Yes,
something along
exactly. And
those
that's
lines.
kind of what's happening to
That's
me
kind
in
of the
my job.
path that
Yep. That's
again,
exactly what's happening to me.
unless you know somebody who's a backend developer and he can again there's a little bit of again like we talked about it before where I talked to a developer who works in Nashville and he straight into the backend development because that's the town where it seems like .NET is kind of a king, and it's the opposite there. It's not maybe front end first. It's back end first. So again, there might be some edge cases, but in general, like the general job markets that I have seen and people that I've talked to who actually work in the industry,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Right.
been the case.
And like I have friends similar to that. I had a friend who started as like a database admin first, so he did a lot of like SQL and all that stuff, and then he eventually went to backend because he didn't care for the front end, and he already had huge experience with managing databases. He already was doing some code and blah blah blah. But like for beginners, I don't know. No, I wouldn't do it. You know,
Let's
like
start tackling the
the questions.
questions. Yeah, we
Yes.
have bunch of familiar faces. We have Tammy, we have Andrew. By the way, Andrew should become our social media. What's the name?
I think he
The guy
already
who
is.
handles that. He could be
I
an
think he
official
already
one.
is. Yeah, he's
Yeah, a
already
huge
doing it.
thank you,
He's an
Andrew. And
amazing
I
guy.
like his zingers. I actually like every time he puts up tweet. I'm like, he's
Thinking
kind of
that.
like
Yeah.
reading my mind and
Yeah.
whatever. I liked his little comment like I'm not begging for retweets, and I'm like, that's my guy. That's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the
Yeah. Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
We're not begging for anything. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. What else? What else? I mean, there's a first question. Let me maybe start with this one. Would you pick the topic content creation sometime, and what procedures do you follow? How much time you take to create? I've been just moving from again, just like we just talked about it. Basically, went from front end, bunch of projects. I don't even look for them. It's literally becomes like I keep saying, I keep listening to Hacker News. Sorry, indie hacker. My apologies. And then I just see companies what they do and see some kind of application. A few days ago, I signed up for Buy Me a Coffee. So I added for the MERN project. I just added a little note like, "Hey, listen, if you find it useful, you can buy me a coffee." Because people have been asking like, why you only have Udemy courses, why you don't have the like little, not donate, but something along those lines. And I'd never really liked Patreon as a company for some reason. Don't ask me why. I don't know. And then I found that Buy Me Coffee, which is like a pretty cool thing. And I'm looking
Yeah.
at their site and I'm like, this is extremely cool project, right?
Yeah.
Because you can sign up there, you're a user, you can add the background image, you can add the preferences, how much is going to be the coffee. Like, there's so many things that you can do with React. I'm like, this is a perfect project. So,
Yeah.
and again, I don't jump to I maybe a little bit jumped the gun on Svelte. So most likely now
It's making a comeback.
no, it is.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna take over the world.
Maybe not that, but SvelteKit is like, but I just don't have time for it. So eventually, I think the course is going to be out of date, and I'm just going to remove it. But I just moved from React and then further into whatever the now the MERN and then next. I mean, what's next? There's Next.js and then there's TypeScript. So that's basically where I'm looking at it. As far as how much. Oh, sorry.
No, I wasn't interrupting. I was just saying. Well, I was interrupting. I was saying, and you're gonna at some point cover PostgreSQL with.
Yes. That's another.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, no, but that one you need to add SQL as well.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to.
Right. Yeah.
So that's also somewhere there, and it's definitely going to be covered. But it's pretty much goes step by step, and like I keep saying already a lot of times, I would want nothing more than to crank them out, but I need to look at few things. Like, first of all, is the project actually, does it cover the basics? Like we always talk about it. I like CRUD. I'm nothing against CRUD, but at the same time, you want to make it that it is unique. That in that sense, that it's not the same as everybody else creates. It's not nothing again. Like this is, I'm not saying here and saying like how great I am, but for me, if I'm doing the same exact thing, then it's just not interesting. Like I need to make something that maybe other people don't think it's cool, but at least I think it's cool for that moment. Now, usually 1 month later, I'm like, oh my God, this was me who built it. But at least in that process, then it's working. Yeah,
I
sorry.
was gonna say, and it's amazing because you literally just talk about like through your actions, you're putting the Pareto principle into action by being okay. What is the if I were to create these courses like that, you get the best bang for your buck. You know what I mean? Like the courses that you're releasing, they're all relative courses to get you hired as a front end developer. And I think that because Svelte, I couldn't find any jobs with Svelte. I mean, to be honest, I do want to take that course. I am interested in the technology, and I know at some point it's gonna like depends who you listen to. It's gonna have some sort of popularity, maybe. I like the idea, but at the end of the day, like Svelte jobs versus React jobs. So like you talk about React, you talk about Node, you talk about Mern, all those things right now. You go onto Indeed.com and just search for those jobs. There's going to be bajillion listings, and so that's kind of one of the reasons like I like so much what you do, because you're like you don't want to deal with the fluff. You want to do what's the most important thing I could present to someone that they could apply and get a job. And to me, it's funny because you're all about helping people get to the result as fast as possible. But me personally, when we have these live streams, I like talking about the self motivation and make you feel good. But it's fine. It's good because you could tell that at the end of the day, you just want people that do your courses get results. And by the way, I got a React job after finishing your React course. I say it all the time because that's what happened. And that's why to me being on this live stream is like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is
Okay,
how you
Paul, you're
got
gonna
the
make
job.
me cry now. So no,
Don't cry, don't
I'm
cry,
kidding.
don't cry,
I'm kidding.
don't
No,
cry.
no, no. Thanks, Paul. And yeah, it's for me. Look, it comes down to I enjoy building those applications, and I just like I'm looking at the steps, what next steps I need to take. So if we're talking about right now, Mern, right, what kind of applications I can build? Then let's say next one is doing the Postgres and all that, and just kind of building on top of whatever is there. And well, I was gonna say something and then I forgot. Like about talking about the something that we talked about a little bit previous live stream about the new stuff. So if you're not listening to Syntax FM, you should. And one of their last episodes, there they talk about Astro. So there's this new thing, Astro, which is it does a lot of cool things, right? But if you listen to episode by the end of it, when they discuss it and all that, yeah, you can use it. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, it brings bunch of good results, but it's pretty much for your own like websites and whatnot. So you're not going to build a web app. So my point is, you can dive into those things if it's a luxury already for you.
Right.
If you want to get a job, then you better focus on things that are not this new shiny thing because that will get you a job. And for example,
Yeah.
I don't like I can listen about the Astro. I read a little bit through their docs. Awesome. But I'm not going to waste my time on it right now. I just don't
It's
have it.
it's it's like people who want to go jogging, but instead of jogging, they're too busy trying to figure out what's the best jogging shoes, the coolest ones for them to buy and wear, and then they never get to jogging in the first place. Um,
For
you
me,
know,
it's more like I think that there's a bunch of people who already have made their name in the industry.
right.
So they're just looking there. And again, nothing against them. Like they're brilliant developers, but they get to have this time to work on those projects. But not all of us have that luxury. So that's kind
Right.
of,
Yeah.
you know,
That's actually a really great point. This is what a lot of people I think don't realize. A lot of people like who are on YouTube, not like me, of course, because like I'm neither am I like the best developer, nor do I have the biggest YouTube channel. But a lot of these people, they already made it. They already got to the pinnacle in their career. They already paid the dues. They got their job. And so now they want to work on things that are fun. And a lot of times, the things that they do for fun because they like it or because they have the luxury to do it doesn't mean that's what I could do to get a job with. I mean, there's a reason why I'm still sticking for boring technologies, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and Node, because that's kind of what I know I'm going to get hired with. And I can't tell you the 1,000 hours I spent building applications with Firebase. Not a single job that I have that told me to use Firebase for anything, And so there's things that will get you hired, and then there's things that are fun, But It's like, you got to do the thing that will get you hired. I have a lot of bad jokes, so I have to keep them to myself. I was like, I'm just going to keep it to myself. Something about college dating, whatever, but it doesn't matter.
It looks like it looks like everything is about dating.
No, like because I mean it's a joke. It's funny, but yeah, yeah, it is. It is. Life is just it's either about jujitsu or dating. So that's my filter.
We have one that I definitely want to answer. It's from Alex.
Let's do it.
First of all, thank you, Alex, for all the support, for showing up, for answering for us the questions. I mean, I really appreciate that, and just whenever I get to Europe, I definitely want to visit. I believe you were from Romania, so I definitely want to visit, and I'm paying for dinner. I definitely want to hang out. He has a question. How do you balance work toddler life? Alex, schedule and support a partner to and saying no to basically a bunch of things. Literally, 10 minutes before 8, I put my toddler to sleep. And now I'm doing this. And then basically tomorrow, everything is going to start up again. Schedule. Gone are the days with watching Game of Thrones all night and then working the next day. You just don't have that time. You literally need to come up with the plan at work. So I have the hours that I want to do. And then we just sit down and my wife has a job, so it's literally about coming up what works for everyone, that we still get to have days together, and how I implement that. There's days when I finish technically earlier, and yet I work at night then, so I can get to spend the time with my daughter actually during the day. So it's not just I show up at 6 o'clock every day. Then it's well, you don't really see her and whatever. So yeah, those are the 3 principles, and support a partner, because I mean, you'll have it's tough. It's especially the initial part, the not sleeping, 2 zombies walking around the house, no fun. I mean, yeah, it's a great moment, when the child is born, but it's I'm not gonna lie, it was. I thought that I've seen a lot of things by that time because I've lived in multiple countries. I've done multiple jobs, met people. I thought that I've figured everything out, and little person showed up and just I was like, oh I don't know anything how to do it. So yeah.
That was a great question, and it's amazing because you have the same 24 hours in a day that I do, but you just have way more responsibility than I do. My point, and the question that I always feel whenever you give people advice about something, how to switch careers, how to whatever, they go, but John or Paul, you don't understand. I just don't have time. And it's a guy who probably is maybe single, maybe married, but if you have a family, you have no idea what it's like. And I think what a lot of people forget is that everybody has some sort of you have your family, your work, your partner, whatever. There's always stuff that you have to deal with in your life, that the only way you continue to study or make you're making courses, you have to make time by prioritizing and being able to say no to a lot of activities. And so for me, I know for a fact I don't have as much as responsibility as you do right now, but at the same time, sometimes I feel I don't have enough time. How's John so productive? But if I slow down and I think about my life, I realize it's wait, you're not setting the same priorities John is setting for himself to make sure that he does the most important things, using the 80-20 rule to decide what those things are and kind of acts on them. And I feel that's the untold truth that nobody wants to talk about, is that you have to make time. You just have to say to yourself what's important, and you have to do that thing. And that was a great question, because I always get this one, but Paul, you don't understand. I have a family. So does everybody else, That's
if I have a plan and something doesn't work out, in the sense that, look, there's days when I, do probably stuff that, I don't know, watch one YouTube video too many or whatever, right? I don't also, at the same time, it's all about just showing up and moving, keep moving forward, right? just forget about what happened yesterday, and then today's a new day, and then we start basically from scratch again. We have the hours, we have the schedule. Let's keep moving. I really don't like. I'm really big fan of this. Like, whether it's gonna work out or not, it's one thing. If you can honestly say to yourself, "Look, I did the best I could," then to me it's a lot. And I'm always kind of, if I can say that, then I'm like, you know what, I'm good, even if it didn't work out. Again, there's tons of things I wish I would be done with whatever I'm doing right now already, but I'm not. I'm still doing, like, it's a process. It takes time, and every day I'm just thinking, okay, what I can do to maybe make it better or whatever. So, I mean, hopefully this kind of answers the original question.
Yeah.
We have Tammy. Tammy said that she likes, you see, she likes I like the power graphic. Yeah, first of all, I want to say thank you to Paul for coming up with that. That was brilliant. That's why he's here. Power Hour is brilliant. And then my wife had a huge impact. She kind of actually she found some of them, and then we gave it to the designer, and she put it together. So that was again, this is the case where usually I'm just really not doing anything. I'm just utilizing some other resources, which is Paul, my wife, and designer. But yeah, I'm looking at it, and that's one of those. I look at that thumbnail, and I'm like, that's the best one I have on my channel. So yeah, I really like that. I was raving to Paul about it, but he said that he still likes his face better. So that's his money maker.
Listen, right, exactly. My brand is all my face. That's the only reason people come to my channel. They don't care about code. They don't care about like switching careers. They don't even care about how awesomely I wrote my resume and show you the steps how to do it so you get hired. They literally just come for the face. I think that's 100%. That's not true. That's not true.
No, I know. So when you answered on Twitter, I knew that you were joking about face. I just wanted to mention that joke here so people see what our conversations are behind the scenes and all that.
Yeah, and what's funny, like, John is very professional on his streams, and sometimes on my streams, I'll get carried away. So I see some of these questions, and I'm like, I got to be mindful. I'm on John's stream, but the funny one for me is. And again, you have to appreciate that I have a sense of humor. Somebody said, can you say the exact steps on how to learn React? So
was it React or Redux?
Like combination of all those things, React, Redux. So you open your VS Code, you go File, New, and then I was literally going to say like 1,000 steps of how to do it. But like the thing for me, like when I see questions like that, like I feel people know the answer already, and they're asking questions for like some sort of validation, maybe, or some sort of like the same reason why people like on Twitter or retweet things. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like I don't know if that even makes sense, but like I feel like a lot of times people ask questions because they already know the answer, and maybe they're not doing the things that they're supposed to do, and they're getting trying to find validation why they're not accomplishing things, if that makes sense. It's almost like procrastination through asking questions. That's like my first theory. And the second theory is because people don't know where to start. What do you think that could be?
For me, it's always, again, I don't want to go into a rant of what I don't like about social media, but I always do find a little bit like posts like, hey, what was the toughest part of learning stuff? And then people post and whatever. I just don't like, I kind of see maybe a little bit of sense, but this kind of, it a little bit reminds me of that. Like, there's no, like what steps you need to take. I don't know. Like, again, the only way I can suggest something is saying, follow my course. That right. And it's not, and I'm not saying that because I think that my course is the best in the world, but that's the only thing kind of, I know what the path that I put in order to learn that. So that's kind of the only, like, you learn the idea of what is the component, and then you slowly, step by step, understand every hook, and then you build a project with that. And I think there was a similar question about Redux.
Yeah.
Like, how can you learn Redux? Well, you learn what is the store in the beginning, what is dispatch, what is that? You make a small CRUD application, and then you make it more complex by fetching data. That's, kind of the best.
And the crazy part about that, what I would say, not to make fun of anybody, but if you went and looked at the documentation, exactly what you just said, that's the first things the documentation goes through. They show you how to make a basic count. So we're not saying there's dumb questions, because I ask a lot of dumb questions and I probably hold I'm the king for asking stupid questions. But if you ask a question without going and looking at the documentation of the thing that you want to know about, like, you're wasting your time and you're wasting other people's time because you're not asking the right question. And I'm not saying it to like be mean, because at my work, like, if I ask that question to my boss, he's going to look at me like and be like, what are you getting paid for? Did you even take time to go and look at the documentation first? So then you could ask me a more specific question that will allow me to help you, rather than asking these general questions. And I guess, like, I'm frustrated for my boss, because when I first started working, I would ask questions like that, and he'll be like he doesn't want to say this to me, but he'll be like, did you try Googling it first? No, you didn't. You didn't try Googling. Okay. Now you're asking me a question about React, use reduce hook. Did you go to react.org by any chance and see what they say? No, you didn't do that. No, you didn't do that. What are you doing? And so, like, but I want people to understand, because I wasted 4 or 5 years being like that of my life. I could have been a developer faster. So before you ask any questions, go out of your way and look it up yourself and do the research yourself. So then when you do ask questions, you could ask more specific questions that are useful for everybody. Like, for instance, you could have done some research on Redux, and your question could have been like, maybe, how do you learn Redux? You could have been like, what are the benefits of using Redux versus Context API, and what is the use case where you would use one or the other? And that would have been a more interesting question to answer, because that's the type of questions that a lot of people have answers to. Again, sorry, it's your stream, but I like these rants sometimes because I get so passionate about getting the whole community ask better questions to help everybody grow together.
No, for me, it's also in the courses I try to, if there's just a general, like, usually it's a like one-liner, like, such and such doesn't work. My first response is, please be, more specific, because it's very hard to answer a vague question. We're 1 hour in, but there's one last kind of question that I want to answer.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I saw that in the last live stream, and this is actually, we could a little bit attach it to your previous rant. Hi, sir. Is your Node.js course on Udemy job ready? It's impossible for me to answer that question. I made that course so you are ready to build APIs for your front-end projects. There's no course that will get you job ready. This is kind of this biggest thing where, like, whoever advertises that their course is job ready is basically lying to you. I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
Scamming, 100%.
Because the kind of the idea behind a course is going to give you the idea and resources, some courses less, some more, of basically what you can do. And then as far as the specific job, they will be asking you for specific things.
Yeah.
So you'll have to either go back, and then you'll have to see which companies are asking for the same thing or not. There is no job, there is no course that makes you job ready. Do you want to jump on this?
Yeah,
one
100%.
Well?
Any place that guarantees some sort of results, like, like in the finance industry, you can't guarantee results because it literally is illegal. And people that say like, oh, my Python course is going to get you $100,000 job, that's nonsense. Because number one, like, you have to understand, a course is a course. It'll do what it's designed to do. But to get job ready, like, the course is not going to do that for you. You have to do it yourself. Like, what I started telling people on my stream, because everybody wants to, like, maybe it's the type of people I get, they're like, what's the secret? What is the fastest way to get somewhere? And they're like, tell me the secret. Who should I watch? Who should I listen? What course should I buy? And to me, I'm like, you're the secret. You are the ingredient through your actions, through your work, through your discipline to learn, to read documentation, to build stuff from scratch. You are the reason why you're going to get the job. It's not me. It's not John. It's not anybody else's courses. It's how much work are you putting in, and are you doing the right thing? And so for me, it's like, I look at courses because they're basically ways for me to save time. Like, you put all this work into your course. You made an amazing course. which I know that you put a lot of effort, you put on time, and I know that it will take me like a year just to find that information myself, structured like that on free resources. So I'm just going to pay for your course so I could have this nicely compact course where I could learn exactly what I need to do in a structured curriculum. And then I could take what I learned from you, build my own projects, do my own research, and build my portfolio myself to get hired myself. Right? So I know I made it's not a joke, right? I tell people after I took your React course, I was able to get a job. Okay, so that's not completely true because I didn't mention the fact that I applied what I learned. I built a bunch of projects. I Googled what are the most common interview questions for React. I studied those questions. I also researched the company that I was applying to. I understood what they were building. I understood like what technologies they were working with React. I found out that they were using style components. I found out that they use React, and I prepared myself ahead of time to make sure that the projects I built mimic what I would be working with at work. And then finally, after doing that, going to the interview, having a resume, having all that stuff, doing all this work, not sleeping, studying, then finally I got the job. So technically, yeah, I took your course, got the job, but like I say, and this is the final thing because I love to talk, you guys are the main key ingredient if you get hired or not. John is not successful making courses like because of me or some secret he learned from somebody else. John is successful in making courses because he put his soul and sweat and tears into learning everything he needed to do to be the best instructor he can be. So John is his credit for doing John's awesome courses. I am my own credit for getting my own job because I put in the work. And so a lot of you guys who are searching for these job-ready courses or looking for these secret formulas, the secret formula is the work that you do and having that feedback cycle where if something doesn't work, you kind of get some sort of response, that you could change and do something better the next time. Okay, rant done. I think, John, you need a sign that says, rant start and then rant stops because I get so passionate about this stuff,
No, but that's why you're here. So
thank you.
I'm
gonna get fired. I'm gonna get fired.
No, you're not gonna get fired. No, it's different approaches because I really like enjoying listening. Like what is your kind of opinion on that? And then I just add whatever I think about it. And do you talk to Tech Rally often?
Sometimes. Like,
can you tell him that I don't have a beef with him? He thinks that I have a beef.
Oh my God.
No, because it's probably because I mentioned that on Twitter when people make a survey or whatever, right? This is again, I have nothing against whatever. I just don't personally participate in them. But it doesn't. So there is no beef. Tech Rally. We're cool, and Paul is gonna pass that info to you as well when he sees you on a private live stream. So
I'm like, John said that if he ever sees it, no, just kidding. I wouldn't know. The funny thing is, like all the things I say to everybody on YouTube, you got to understand that my daughter, who's turning 22 this year, she could recite all these lessons to you by heart because she knows that. The more whining you do in my family, the less you accomplish, and so you got to own up and do the things that you got to do. Like I'll bring Marissa on my live stream so you could hear the horror stories of me teaching her lessons.
Well, you raised her pretty tough, right?
Yeah, she's tough. Yeah. But not just, she's just tough. Like she's not because of me. She's just like a tough girl. But, did I tell you the story how I tried to teach her about compound interest so she could learn to invest her money?
No.
Oh, I never told you the story. Okay, I'll tell you this last story before we go. So Marissa, she's 4 years old. Think of a 4-year-old, right? And I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh, this is a great learning opportunity for my daughter to learn about managing money. So I go to her, hey, Marissa, you want some candy? She's like 4-year-old. Yes, Daddy, I want some candy. And I go give her one M&M. I put it in her hand. And then I take it away. I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you this. If I give you this M&M right now, you could eat it, but then your M&M will be gone. But if you wait till tomorrow, and because you already have one, I'm going to give you 2 M&Ms. And then I'll be like, of course you could eat the 2 M&Ms and they'll be gone. But if you wait for the next day, I'll give you 4 M&Ms and then 8 and then 16. And by the end of the month, you're going to have more M&Ms than you could eat in your whole entire life. And I'm like, being like, oh my God, you're teaching your kid about being responsible with money. And then I see little tears in her eyes. And she's like, Daddy, I just wanted candy. And I'm like, you're an idiot. I'm like, you're an idiot, Paul. Your kid just wants some candy. Give her some candy, you know. And now, like, she called me the other day. This is a true story. She's like, hey, Dad, I've been working in the Navy. I'm making some money. I want to start investing some money. And I know you mentioned compound interest. And so I was like, see, they listen. They listen. So I have to hook her up with the guy who helps me with that stuff so she could start at least doing like the basics. But yeah, that's it. That we could, that's the story.
No, compound interest is definitely something that we can make a main theme and everything. And we'll end up on this lovely note. Again, we're doing 1 hour right now.
Yes, thank you, John. Sorry, Power Hour.
Thank you, Paul, for coming and just sharing your opinions. It's really beneficial to me and everyone here. I really enjoy you having here. Again, thanks to everyone who showed up. You wanna send off?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you and everybody who was able to come. Like, we love having you guys here, and like, please know that we want to talk about serious stuff here, but at the same time, we do want to make it entertaining. So we do joke a lot of times. So take it as
with a grain of salt.
Grain of salt. Yeah, don't be like, well, Paul said, blah. Like, I say a lot of stuff because you should laugh and have fun. But we did cover the most important stuff.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is gonna validate your point. A lot of jiu-jitsu instructors are exactly like my current jiu-jitsu instructor is exactly the same way. There is no, hey, I don't feel. No, you feel like it. If you showed up, you feel like it. Yeah,
exactly.
Continue.
Exactly.
Paul.
Exactly. Yeah, and then just thank you for inviting me. Every time you invite me, I'll always be back because this is fun both ways. I love having our conversations, and I hope people get value, but at the same time, have fun too. You know, that's the most important part. Life is too short to be serious. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Let's complete on this note. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.